Thank you, Jane. Good evening and welcome to Look North. Our top story tonight. After the death of Sheffield United footballer Maddy Cusack, a former teammate speaks about her experience at the club.
When you're going into work every day, which is what it is, and people walk past you and you feel completely valueless, it's really easy to just slip into a very dark hole, I suppose, especially when you've given up your whole life to play football.
An investigation into Maddy's death is still ongoing. Also tonight, new research shows Yorkshire Water spend a third of bill payers' cash on debts and dividend payments. A Doncaster football club hit by fire appeals for help to rebuild changing rooms in time for a festive match.
And I'm here at the Ashgate Hospice near Chesterfield with Mistletoe and his friend Michael, who've been visiting the patients to spread a bit of Christmas cheer. Go on, there's your moss down there, get tucked in.
And after a pretty bleak week of weather, you'll be pleased to know something brighter as we head into the weekend. I'll be back at the end of the programme with all the details.
Good evening, it's Friday night. Thank you for joining us. The family of Maddy Cusack, the Sheffield United player who died at home last year, are facing a second Christmas without her. An FA investigation into the circumstances surrounding her death that began in January is still pending, and an inquest has been scheduled for April. Nina Wilson knew Maddy well. She was her teammate and friend. Now Nina has chosen to speak out about her experiences with the club. She says she felt crushed by the environment and describes her time there as the worst 6 months of her life. She's been speaking to our sports reporter, Sally Hurst.
Oh my God, is that Maddy Cusack?
She was the funniest person I've ever met, like genuinely one of the best teammates I've had, and just a warrior, like the toughest girl ever. But off the pitch, an absolute sweetheart.
Maddy Cusack was the first person Nina Wilson met when she moved from Brighton to Sheffield to join United as a goalkeeper in 2021. They quickly became close friends. But she says both of them found themselves out of favour when Jonathan Morgan took over as head coach in February 2023. And when Nina returned from a loan spell at Wolverhampton, she says she was no longer allowed to train with the team.
Everyone gets dropped and everyone knows that football is ultimately about performance, but when you're going into work every day, which is what it is, and people walk past you and you feel completely valueless, it's really easy to just slip into a very dark hole, I suppose, especially when you've given up your whole life to play football, and that's the issue really, especially when it was so enjoyable and I loved it so much. Just had an awful time for the last 6 months, just felt super isolated and very alone really, with a lack of support.
Meanwhile, Maddy, who had played for United since 2019 and worked for their marketing department, was also struggling. Did you see a change in Maddy?
That bubbly person almost vanished like overnight, to be honest. Like, she wouldn't say a word at training. She'd be out doing extra fitness sessions, extra running. Like, she always did extras anyway, but she was doing a lot. And she wouldn't say a bad word about anyone, so it was really difficult for anyone to really understand what was going on, because she was trying to be professional, but it was easy to see that she wasn't herself.
In September 2023, at the age of 27, Maddy died at home. Nina was told the news by a teammate.
She just said, "Maddy's gone," and I knew what that meant immediately. She didn't have to say anything else. It was very obvious to me that football was involved in some way. And it was just one of those moments where I kind of knew nothing would be the same after that. Like, as soon as I put the phone down, I kind of just sat in my car and I was like, I don't think football will ever be the same for me.
Sheffield United commissioned an investigation into the events leading to Maddy's death. It found no evidence of wrongdoing at the club. An FA investigation was started in January. Its conclusions are still pending. In February, Jonathan Morgan was sacked by United after separately it emerged he'd had a relationship with a player at Leicester where he'd previously worked.
She was a fighter, a tough opponent that you didn't want to play against.
Maddy's family and friends have poured their grief into a foundation in her name. They want to change the culture of women's football and make sure psychological support is available in every club.
We want obviously young girls like me and Maddy were when we were 4 or 5 to go and play football and be able to play football. That being said, we want them to go into a safe environment and we want them to go into clubs where they feel valued and they feel protected and the staff are looking out for them and are trained in mental well-being and warning signs. And I think that would be a huge legacy for her to have made it better in some way.
In a statement, Sheffield United said they have an external and independent whistleblowing service in place since 2018, a dedicated women's safeguarding officer, a player care officer, as well as access to internal mental health first aiders and wellbeing services. And there are further plans to strengthen the support staff of the women's team. Nina no longer plays football. Her heart just isn't in the game anymore. But she's speaking out now to make sure her friend Maddy isn't forgotten. How will you remember Maddy?
Just funny, like, she's one of a kind. Like, I don't want to cry, but she's a one of a kind person. I'll never meet another Maddy again. Yeah, I hope we can do her proud, and that's ultimately what it's about.
Remembering Maddy there, and if you or someone you know has been affected by the issues raised there, you can contact the BBC Action Line at bbc.co.uk/action line for details of organisations offering advice and support. Next tonight, the boss of Yorkshire Water has defended accepting a bonus payment of more than £370,000. That's at a time when the company faces rising debt and complaints about sewage in the region's rivers. Next week, it's expected to be announced that the average water bill in Yorkshire will go up by a quarter over 5 years. The company says it's needed to fund improvements to the network. David Rhodes has more.
So down here, underneath here, we can see it's just full of wipes, toilet roll, sanitary products, all of those things.
This part of the River Wharfe near Ilkley poses a risk to human health. 87% of the rivers across Yorkshire currently fail to achieve a good rating for ecological standards.
When I first started getting involved in this campaign, I couldn't really believe that in a country like ours we're actually just dumping sewage into the river.
Yorkshire Water says it's spending £800 million alone this year on improving the water network. £15 million has gone on building new sewers like this one near Ilkley. To fund more improvements, Yorkshire Water wants to raise £8 billion. Part of that will come from raising customer bills potentially by 25% over the next 5 years, taking the average bill above £500 a year.
If you're somebody who's already struggling and you're just about managing to keep up with all your bills, I think people are very worried about it.
Yorkshire Water is a company that has a lot of cash. It's currently borrowed £6.2 billion, and a new analysis suggests a third of current customer bills are being used to repay creditors and shareholders.
It goes out as either dividends or interest and debt servicing. And so that doesn't deliver any service at all. It's like a financial diarrhea through the company. We pay our bills in and 1/3 of it goes straight out the other end.
But in Yorkshire Water's case, the company has been taking on more debt, and on two key metrics, the company's performance hasn't been improving. Since 2020, Yorkshire Water has spilled sewage into the region's rivers for 1.5 million hours. In 2023, there were over 77,000 of these so-called spill events, the highest number in 4 years.
My job is to manage Yorkshire Water, to see us delivering for the people of Yorkshire, and that's what I'm focused on.
After taking over in 2022, the current chief executive, Nicola Shaw, declined to take her first bonus, citing public anger over sewage spills. But in her second year, when the number of recorded sewage spills has increased, Nicola Shaw received a salary and pension package worth £657,000 and a performance bonus worth £371,000. The company told us bonuses are set by an independent remuneration committee and that this year bonuses for executive directors were reduced by around a third to take into account the company's environmental performance not being where we want it to be.
So the River Calder is beautiful, but it's also one of the most polluted rivers in the country.
Given the company's performance in the last 12 months, there are calls for Nicola Shaw to repay her bonus.
Nicola Shaw, the CEO of Yorkshire Water, took home £370,000 as a bonus. In what other industry do you get to take home a bonus at the same time as running a failing business?
A decision will be made next week about how much bills are going to rise. Yorkshire Water customers will be asked to pay more, so how are Yorkshire Water going to spend that money? David Rhodes, BBC Look North, West Yorkshire.
Well, earlier I spoke to the CEO of Yorkshire Water, Nicola Shaw, and I started by asking her why more money isn't being spent on tackling sewage spills in our region.
So we're currently spending about £180 million in this year and last year to really make a good start. But in the next 5 years, we want to spend £1.4 billion to reduce discharges from those storm overflows. It's a big programme, and it's something that we want to do across the county and make sure everyone gets the benefit of it.
But is it good enough? £47 million spent on fines on historic spills. That's a lot of money, isn't it?
Well, that's a proposed fine. It hasn't been finalised. It is a lot of money, and we'd much rather not be paying the fines. What we'd like to do is to invest in the network. That's what we think is the right thing to do.
Now, 2 years ago, you chose not to take your bonus because of the public anger on the sewage spills. Last year, you did take it. It was quite a big figure, £371,000. Is that not slightly hypocritical when the public is still angry?
So I joined Yorkshire Water a couple of years ago. And as you said, that first year I didn't take a bonus, but the board was really keen that I focused on things that were really important for the business as a whole. And we know that this is going to be a long-term turnaround. So they set up some standards that I had to meet together with the whole team. We're all incentivised in the same way. And on many of them, we did make real progress. On some key ones, particularly environmental, we didn't. And that's why they reduced the bonus and they said less. And the bonus is paid for by the shareholders. It won't be paid for by customers.
But ultimately, it is the customers who are paying for it, isn't it? The shareholders get the money from the customers.
Yes, but it would have been out of shareholders' profit, and they've decided not to take that.
We're looking at bills going up by 25% potentially. We know 20% of people out there in England say they will struggle to pay these bills. What would you say to them?
So I absolutely accept these are large rises. But just to set that in context, it's about 20p per person per day across Yorkshire. We recognise for some people that is even too much. So what we've also done is set aside more money to support those who need it. And it was one of the big bits of feedback we got from our customers when we were talking to them about the plan over the next 5 years. They said, we recognise we need to make more investment, but we also want to help other people in society if we possibly can. So £55 million a year is being set aside, which is a significant uplift, about the same kind of uplift, for our vulnerable customers. If you think you're struggling with your bills, please do get in touch. We will be able to support all low-income households.
Nicola Shaw, thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
And you can watch the full story with more analysis on Politics North this Sunday at 10 o'clock in the morning. Some more news from around the region now, and teachers at some sixth form colleges in Yorkshire are on strike today because of what they say is a pay mistake. Teachers at academy colleges were included in a 5.5% pay award, but those at other colleges were not. This was a protest outside Notre Dame Catholic Sixth Form College in Leeds this morning. The government says it's up to the colleges involved to set their staff's pay.
All we want is a fair deal. We want to be treated as teachers like other school teachers and to have the wage rise that was awarded to school teachers. All educators should be paid the same. We do the same job, and we really can't understand why we've been left out of this pay award.
Some good news for Christmas travellers. Planned strike action at Leeds Bradford Airport has been called off. Around 50 ground staff were due to walk out next week over a dispute with Swissport. Unite Union said they were not being given extra payments for de-icing work, which were offered by Swissport at other airports. Following negotiations, Unite said an agreement had been reached and industrial action cancelled. An aid worker from West Yorkshire says she's worried about the amount of food getting into Gaza to help people living there. Kate Newton from Ilkley is the World Food Programme's Deputy Country Director for Palestine. She's helping the UN give life-saving support for civilians, which has been backed by more than £14 million from the UK government.
At the moment, we really can't get enough food in, and that's what's really worrying me at the moment, and that's what affects me most as a manager of a food relief programme. So we're only feeding about 1/3 of the people that we should be feeding. We can only get in about 1/3 of the amount of food, and that's for various reasons.
A Yorkshire MP has written to the Health Secretary seeking clarity over a prescription for special pouches used by kidney dialysis patients. The pouches allow those having dialysis to shower without fear of infection. But one woman from Wakefield who uses them got in touch with Lock North after being told they'd no longer be available on prescription. Phil Bodmer has the story.
Coming to an end, I've only got 30 minutes left.
Annika Murphy relies on 4 hours of dialysis 3 times per week after being diagnosed with kidney failure 4 years ago. The cover teacher is undergoing training to give herself dialysis at home. Part of the condition is that she can only shower with the use of a pouch covering the hole in her chest because of the high risk of infection.
The reason we have to wear those, your water in your house is not sterile. It's coming from the mains. It has bacteria in it. Normally it's not harmful to anybody if you are completely closed. But obviously I've got this and it's going straight to my heart.
Annika began using the pouches in August, but was then told her prescription was being halted. She raised the matter with her GP and consultant, and the pouches were reinstated.
We were told that my prescription had been stopped because they were too expensive. When I brought it up with my GP, they got back to me and said, initially, the language that they used was, initially and temporarily we're going to continue this for you. So I said to them, but temporarily, that's no help to me.
The organisation that plans healthcare told us patients currently receiving a prescription for Independence wound drainage bags from their GP practice in Wakefield will continue to do so in the meantime. However, new patients will not receive these products as they have previously been determined to provide no additional benefits to infection reduction.
People need clear advice, and Annika was given these pouches in August. So what's that? We're now in December. Why the change in plan? Why is that? And what was the thinking behind saying you can have it? Oh no, you can't have it anymore.
This is one of the pouches that I use. So all of this above the yellow would normally be covered with gauze. So when I want to get a shower, I would unwrap the pouch, and then that would stick over completely my central line, so everything would be encased.
When I spoke to Annika last week, it was clear that there has been a bit of a communication issue here, and that's why I wrote to the Health Secretary Wes Streeting, so he can review the decision made by the local ICB, and we can get an understanding about why they have decided to take this decision.
The ICB says all patients are advised on how to take care of their dialysis line and provided with information to support this.
My concern is, so yes, I don't feel secure in my prescription that I'm going to definitely get it, but I couldn't take that information and park it because it's actually part of a bigger picture, and there are maybe people that haven't got as much of a voice or don't feel that they can challenge something.
Annika says her reason for speaking out is to help others who may be in a similar situation. Phil Bodmer, BBC Look North.
Now, a South Yorkshire football club is urgently appealing for help to get their ground ready for a festive derby match after a fire destroyed their changing rooms. Club Thorne Colliery's changing rooms were condemned after the fire in May, and they're now desperate to get temporary facilities ready so they can play at their home ground for the first time since October. Abby Jayola has been to meet them.
Jubilation for Club Thorne Colliery in May when they ended the season by winning promotion, but these celebrations were short-lived.
We lifted the trophy, first time the club's won the league in almost 40 years, and then 6 days later, unfortunately, our changing rooms were set on fire, and ever since then it's been such a challenging time for the people at the club just to keep the club alive.
Despite the extensive fire damage, the club changing rooms were still usable until the building was fully condemned in October. Since then, the team have been forced to play all their matches away from home. If the facilities aren't fixed soon, they risk being dropped from the league altogether. There's almost 100 years of history at this club, and they're desperate to be able to keep the footballing tradition going.
It's like the heart of community. We've got a massive junior section which hundreds of players are in. All the kids in Thorne and Moor Ends play for a team here. We get 200, 300 people down here every weekend when we're playing here, so it brings everyone together. Everyone can have a drink and speak to each other. So it's really important to the community, yeah.
The club now face a race against time. They've begun crowdfunding to raise the £30,000 needed to turn these temporary buildings into changing rooms.
We've got 3 cabins on site. This is going to be the home changing rooms. Basically what we're going to have is along the back is the changing rooms. As you come down a little bit, we're going to have the new toilet for the lads, and then we're going to have benches that run all the way around the back for them to get changed. That's going to be mirrored on the other side. And then in the container in the middle, we're going to have 2 refs rooms.
But it's not just money they need. They'd love more help on site from anyone who can spare time or materials.
We've got a wonderful group of people who already work hard at the club as volunteers, good group of supporters. We'd love them to come out in their numbers, whether they can give up some time, supporters in donating materials. As you can see, we've got a big project on at the moment which we need help with, or obviously any financial contributions. There's a big expense here involved at the club, so we're just all working hard, and if people can, any way, shape or form, give us that support, we'd be really appreciative.
The club are due to play a Doncaster derby against Armthorpe on the 28th, so the project must be completed by then. They're hoping the community will pitch in to help them reach their goal. Abby Jaola, BBC Look North, Doncaster.
Yes, let's hope they can get those repairs done for Christmas. Now I have company. You know Dasher and Dancer and Donna and Blitzen, plus that most famous of reindeers. But do you know that our local reindeers are getting up to in less than 2 weeks before Christmas? They're not playing reindeer games or going on sleigh rides. Instead, they're spreading festive cheer in Chesterfield, visiting patients at Ashgate Hospice. We sent our very own Tom Ingle to be Santa's little reindeer helper.
Oh, to be a reindeer. Just 4 weeks' work in a year and all the hay you can eat. Having said that, there are a lot of personal appearances.
Oh, you beautiful boy. Yes, you are. You've made my day, you have.
Today, Mistletoe and Michael were subbing for Donna and Blitzen, and they've hoofed it over to Chesterfield to Ashgate Hospice.
It surprised me because a lot bigger than what I thought. A lot heftier than I thought, and soft, and oh, they're just beautiful, aren't they?
Did you expect to have reindeers in your room today?
No, I didn't, because I was quite excited.
What did you make of it?
Fantastic. My heart's beating, you know. I just think they're beautiful.
Can you tell us about our star guests then, please?
Yeah, this is Mistletoe. He's 13, nearly 14, and this is Michael, and he's 3, nearly 4.
Are either of them medically qualified? Because they have been into rooms, they've been dispensing prescriptions.
Yes, there is they are qualified in dispensing the prescription of happiness.
I was not expecting reindeers to appear. I expected other things to appear. But we've also had a visit from the football team, which was quite nice. I enjoyed that as well. Takes your mind off things. You can easily get quite depressed without realising it.
Well, look, we're all smiling, laughing. It is absolutely brilliant. Like for all patients and families to see it, it's not something you expect to see, is it, when you come visiting somebody here? But as always, we Ashgate, you never know what you're going to get. We have all sorts visiting, so yeah, it's brilliant. It's like bringing Christmas early.
And where do they come from?
Ashby Delazouche.
OK, but in real life, I mean, obviously that's where they live.
Mistletoe is from the Arctic Circle. He is one of the original reindeers from the Arctic Circle. Michael is English bred. He's from Wales.
OK, but this chap here could be Rudolph's cousin.
He could be Rudolph.
As the youngster, Michael was a bit of a handful. I say, rein him in, dear. But there were smiles aplenty without any fur flying. You could say these reindeer absolutely slayed. Tom Ingle, BBC Look North, Chesterfield.
Oh, aren't they absolutely gorgeous? They did indeed slay. Now, that gets me into the Christmas spirit. Are you going to the it's BBC Christmas party tonight? You going, Keely?
Don't show me up. You're not going either.
No, I'm not. Too miserable.
It's called being old and boring, I think.
That's the one.
I include
That's the
myself
one.
in that so I can get away with it, maybe. The weather's been boring this week as well, hasn't it? It really has been miserable at times. But you have actually sent some really lovely atmospheric pictures in of the grey, miserly conditions. This one I thought was lovely. I thought you would particularly like this one.
Beautiful.
Amanda.
That could be Penny.
It could be Penny. I don't think it is, but it could be Amanda's Penny. And the next picture is just as dreek. That was this morning in Ecclesall. Someone said it was peak bleak this week, which I think is pretty spot on. But you can get your pictures coming in over the weekend when hopefully there'll be something a little bit brighter. You can sign up to the Weather Watchers page, or we're on social media too, Instagram, keeley.donovan. So yes, some improvement into the weekend. A cold front overnight tonight will push away all of that cloud. So tomorrow we'll say goodbye to the grey skies and hello to some sunshine. It will be brighter. That sunshine though could be hazy at times because we will have quite a bit of high level cloud out there. So that's the cold front going through overnight. And then on Sunday, we'll pick up more of a southwesterly flow. So Sunday will be much milder, temperatures in double figures, but there will be quite a bit of cloud around. And similarly on Monday, it will be on the mild side. There might be a little bit more in the way of brightness, I think, on Monday, particularly in the east. But we have had a blanket of cloud across the British Isles. Any brightness has been fairly limited, although visibility did improve as we went through today. So most places saw a bit of an improvement, but some places kept hold of that drizzle all day long. And out there at the moment, there's a lot of cloud, there's some drizzle. We might overnight see a few spots of rain. That's the cold front, barely anything on it, pushing through overnight. Behind it, much clearer skies and temperatures, particularly across parts of North Yorkshire, will drop low enough for a touch of ground frost down to around 1 or 2 degrees, with clear skies developing through the night. Let's have a quick look at those high water times then. At 2:35 in Scarborough and at 2:23 in Whitby. So I think we'll start the morning on a fine note. There should be some sunshine and it should be quite chilly out there too. Now, it's not going to stay wall-to-wall sunshine throughout the day. I think there'll be a fair amount of high and medium level cloud. And I think later in the day, we'll just see an increase in thicker cloud into the west and the northwest. But it does look like a decent day, certainly for daylight hours. It looks much brighter than it has been, with temperatures at around 7 degrees, which is about average for the time of year. It'll be a breezier day into Sunday, quite large areas of cloud, but it will be milder, and that mild weather will last for at least the first half of next week. Amanda.
Thank you very much, Keeley. And that is it from us. If you are heading out, do have a lovely evening. We'll be here in the newsroom eating our microwave meals and cobbling together an award-winning late news and weather. From all the team here, goodbye.